of the city of Dallas, and I see some faces of folks that I've gotten to work with before and some new faces. So welcome to all of you, and welcome to those of you who are joining us online via WebEx. And we're looking forward to a very interactive conversation tonight. As you can see, we're going to collect some information throughout the evening via this platform called Poll Everywhere, and you'll be seeing the results of your responses to the other questions as we move along, but the city has asked that we collect folks' names and addresses here at the start. So I know we've got more than 8 people in the room. If you would either scan the QR code or go to that web address, or you could send a text message. All of the above will get you in the same place and allow you throughout the course of the evening to answer the poll questions. And I apologize for the feedback that we're getting, but hopefully we'll get this sorted out here in a little while. Here in just a minute, I'm going to introduce Emily Liu. She is our Director of Planning and Development. So she's going to kind of set the stage for us here in just a minute. But if y'all will take another moment to complete this poll, and then we will get going with the substantive part of our discussion. But without further ado, Emily Liu.
Thank you, Dr. Schooler. But first of all, let me introduce Dr. Schooler formally. So Dr. Schooler is our facilitator tonight. He is an assistant professor at the University of Texas, Austin, and a professional mediator in private practice. He worked with municipalities from coast to coast as a consensus building and community engagement. And this is very important to make sure every time I introduce him, I say this. So, and most importantly, he is a father of 2 and a husband of 1. I'm glad to hear that. So again, my name is Emily Liu. I'm the director of the newly formed Planning and Development. I think I've met some of you, not all of you. Welcome to this public meeting. Thank you for taking your time to come to the City Hall. And then also welcome to those who participate online. We have quite a few of those as well. So some of you may already know, earlier this year, there was a proposal about digital kiosks in the city of Dallas. But since our new interim city manager, Kim Tolbert, became the interim city manager, she decided to put it on hold because there might not be enough public engagement at the time. So the city of Dallas, what we are doing here is to do the research and then present our findings to City Council, and so they can make their decision at a later time. I do want to use this opportunity that one of our councilmen is here, Councilman Ridley, representing 14, my district. Thank you for coming. And we will present our research and findings, including the information we collected today, and we'll make that presentation to City Council. Eventually, it's up to the City Council to make the decision. With that, I'm going to turn back to Dr. Schooler.
Thank you so much, Emily. Appreciate it. We're going to ask you all a set of other questions now, so keep your phones or mobile devices handy if you don't mind. I'm going to go to this question about the existing static kiosks in Dallas. We do have kiosks that are in place now, and they aren't digital. They are static for the most part. There are some digital ones that we'll talk about a little bit later. But the question on the screen is, how useful or beneficial have you found Dallas's static kiosks to be? If you feel that it's not helpful at all, you can press A. Minimally helpful. No, sir, you don't. Sure. Yeah, we can go back. Yeah. As long as you get to this website. That's okay. Let me take a look. Let me run some tech support here and see what might be.
Again.
Oh, just say skip for now. If it says register for credit, just say skip for now. And that should. Huh. My apologies, everybody. We'll get this sorted here in just a minute. I do have a number of folks who have successfully gotten in. So let me, if someone wants to show me their screen, I can try to.
I'm in now.
In now. Okay. Yes, you are. Let me send you back to the web, sir, if I can. How would I get back to your web browser?
So,
I got it for you. I'll do it. Yeah. When it says register, just say skip for now, and then you'll get to the questions screen. So I apologize for the tech difficulty there. I see folks are adding in their addresses, so we'll wait just another 30 seconds, and then I'll get to the first substantive question once again. All right. We'll give it just another second. I can see folks are still responding. We appreciate your info. As the father of two children, I don't think that my friend here is a problem child. I have children. Okay. I think we can live with that for now, sir. I think if we need to find you, we will. Thank you. All right, let's get back to substantive questions here. So the question that should update, it should refresh your web page if you've got it open on the web. But the question is, how useful or beneficial have you found Dallas's static kiosks to be? And if you feel they are not helpful at all, you would press A, minimally helpful, B, somewhat helpful, C, very helpful, D. I'll leave this up for a moment, but I might in just a moment also show a picture of a static kiosk just so that folks are clear as to what we are talking about. So I'll just briefly tab away here for just a minute. So there on the screen should be a static kiosk there on the left-hand side with a digital kiosk on the right-hand side for folks' reference. So give another 10, 15 seconds for folks to respond to this question, then we'll keep moving. All right. It's a question about the static kiosks and a question as to what issues have you experienced? And I would recommend, you may say all of the above, and I can understand that, but I would just recommend you pick the one that you think is the most significant. So with the existing stock of static kiosks, what issues have you experienced? If you would say accessibility, A, aesthetics, B, pedestrian obstacles, C, distraction while driving, D. All right. It's a question about digital kiosks. How familiar are you with them, whether they be here in town or in a city you may have visited? So if you have never heard of or seen a digital kiosk, you would choose A, have heard something about them but not very familiar, B, fairly familiar and have seen a few, C, or very familiar and have seen them many times, D. If you're just joining us, you can join the polls tonight using the QR code here on your screen and scan that, or you can see a web address on the left-hand side that you can enter and just skip registration and jump right in to our poll questions. So again, how familiar are you with digital kiosks? Never heard of them or seen them, A. Have heard something but not very familiar, B. Fairly familiar and have seen a few, C. Or very familiar and have seen them many times, D. Give another 10 seconds so some answers come in, and we'll keep moving. All right. So we do have some digital kiosks here in Dallas at Victory Park, and the city wants to know how useful or beneficial have you found those devices to be at Victory Park. I'll just briefly show the visual here. This is an existing digital kiosk at Victory Park on the right-hand side. So if they are not helpful at all, A, minimally helpful, B, somewhat helpful, C, very helpful, D. And for those just joining, we can recycle through these a little bit later. I know some folks may not be able to see the pictures online, so let me just real briefly for the digital audience, for the virtual audience rather, share. On the left-hand side, this is one of our static kiosks. And on the right-hand side, this is a digital kiosk inside of Victory Park. So just to give you a visual aid as you're responding to our questions. Okay. I'll just show the responses here. Okay. A couple more, and then we'll get to some of your questions of the city and your comments. How useful or beneficial have you found digital kiosks to be in other cities where you may have visited? Same choices as the last question. A, not helpful at all. B, minimally helpful. C, somewhat helpful. Or D, very helpful. So this is a question about digital kiosks that you may have encountered on your travels. How useful or beneficial have you found those to be? A, not helpful at all. B, minimally helpful. C, somewhat helpful. And D, very helpful. And for those just walking in, we've got a QR code you can scan to join our poll, or you can join it via the web, or you can send a text message to the phone number 37607 with Larry Schooler 499 as your text. Hit send, and that'll tell your phone that it's plugged into these polls that we're asking. I think most folks find the QR code to be the easiest way if you have that functionality. Give another 30 seconds here, and I can show you the responses populating. Again, this question is about digital kiosks in cities other than Dallas, what your experience has been with those. Similar question as we asked about static kiosks. What issues, what has been kind of the most pressing issue that you have experienced with a digital kiosk? You can choose accessibility, A, aesthetics, including graffiti on the kiosk, B, pedestrian obstacles, C, distraction while driving, D, or technical malfunction, E. So of the if you've had issues with digital kiosks, what would you say was the most significant of those issues? Accessibility, A, aesthetics, including graffiti, B, pedestrian obstacles, C, distraction while driving, D, or technical malfunction, E. All right. And this one, we will ask you to chime in both with your devices, but also you're welcome to raise a hand. My colleague Tasneem is somewhere. Where's Tasneem? She's there. I think she has a microphone as well. But what we want to do here is kind of collect the questions that you have, because Gray Parker here from planning has a slide presentation, but as we talked, we decided let's, instead of just going through a canned presentation, let's be responsive to what it is you all are most interested in knowing about. So on this poll, you can input some questions that you might have, but if you'd rather just verbally ask them, Tasneem's got a microphone and you can certainly do that. We're only using microphones so that everybody who's joined us online can hear. I know it's a little stuffy, but so if anybody wants to ask a question verbally, just give us a hand and Tasneem will come to you. And you can also do what folks are doing digitally by putting up their questions on this poll. So it's the same QR code, the same website, and you can both add questions as well as give a thumbs up to a question that you particularly want to hear answered. So we'll give it some time to populate online for folks watching. But if anybody has a question they want to ask verbally, feel free. So I will just read off a few of these for folks who may not be seeing them live. One question that a lot of folks are asking is, why would we want these? They're old tech that duplicate everything that can be done easier and better on a smartphone. What is the business case for the kiosks? How much revenue would they generate for the city? Who decided that Dallas needed digital kiosks? Can property owners forbid kiosks from being installed in front of their property, or will final decision on location be left up to city staff and the kiosk vendor? Why is the city not prioritizing pedestrian access on our, I'm assuming that meant to be sidewalks? Why does the city of Dallas think digital kiosks would be beneficial? What's the reason for these? Have you asked Dallas Area Rapid Transit about their experience with their hundreds of digital kiosks around town? Are kiosks restricted from pedestrian traffic on public sidewalks? Do they compete for pedestrian usage? What kind of content would be displayed on the screens? Ads, maps, community calendar, small business spotlight? Will there be an opportunity to feature local artists? Economic deal points? I asked this one already. What would happen to the static kiosks? What's the intended purpose or benefit of digital kiosks? Will they generate revenue for the city? What features will it have? A question about whether we're going to answer the questions. Fair enough. Very meta. My students would love that. Is the motivation to provide kiosks a financial one? Has a study been completed regarding where Wi-Fi is actually needed in the city, since this is often referenced as a benefit of kiosks? Will they be near stores and restaurants in town? very excited about these. I don't know what WBY stands for, so I'm not going to attempt that. These seem like they be helpful when getting around Dallas. When will they be installed? Why didn't we get them sooner? Who wrote these biased questions? There's kind of an interesting exchange happening here. Love the idea. Excited for what this could look like in Dallas. Let me just see. What is the cost to buy out the existing contract with Outfront Media? I assume that refers to the static kiosk contract. Comment, allow the landowners the option to opt in or out. We are going to take additional comments after we get through the questions for folks that want to make those. Let's see. Why would the city allow anyone to junk up? Where did I lose that? Junk up the public right-of-way and add distracting visual pollution in exchange for little or no public benefit. So we'll let folks go through the questions for another half a minute or so, see if they want to add any or thumb any up. It's helpful to us to get the thumbs up so that we know what's most top of mind. As I get ready to turn to my colleague, I suspect that, top of mind is, why is this being discussed and on the table? So probably a good place to start there. A lot of folks want to understand how decisions are going to be made if they were to be installed. How would we decide where they would go and so forth? And then, of course, a question about content and a question about revenue all seem to be top of mind. So if that helps you as you make your way through the slides you have. So this poll will remain active, but I'm going to switch the screen to our slide deck so that Gray from the planning department can help you try to answer these questions as best he can. And there may be some that you can answer, and we'll say so if that's the case. So again, this Gray Parker from Planning and Development. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Schooler. Thanks everyone for being here. I will work through these questions, and Emily will be here as well. Let's see. Sure.
Why we're doing this? Actually, there is no proposal on the table. I just want to make sure it is clear. There was one earlier this year, but as I mentioned earlier, the interim city manager, Tobit, want to put it on hold. So right now it's on hold. There is no proposal right now. Okay, our job, the City of Dallas staff, is to gather information. I'm glad you're here. All of your opinions, we're going to compile them. And then in addition to that, we're going to do some research across the country, other cities what they have done. And then we'll present the findings to the city council. I have a councilman sitting right here. And the city council will make a decision. So right now, there is no proposal on the table.
The revenue. Okay. Share. All right, I have a few revenue examples. Starting here in Texas, City of Houston, they have a 35 to 50 million estimated net revenue in ads over the next 12 years and 11 to 16 million guaranteed. There's also within the contract, 3% revenue can be gained with efficiency in their power connections. In San Antonio, the vendor will pay the city the greater of 21.5% of net advertising revenue generated from each kiosk, a total of $787,000 for the following 4 years of that initial term. Further out, City of Berkeley, California, they installed 31 kiosks, and they're getting little over 800,000 annually for those kiosks. City of Seattle is actively just getting started with their kiosk program. They're working with the Downtown Seattle Association and the mayor's office. In that scenario, the Downtown Seattle Association will receive 1.5 million in ad revenue from the vendor per year. It happens that DSA's annual budget is approved by City Council, and they work together to use that funding to go towards their Downtown Ambassador program that helps with tourism and guidance. They've also looked at kiosk revenue within planned improvement district neighborhoods. They're allocating a certain number, I believe it's 20 of those kiosks, to be within these special neighborhood improvement districts. And they'll coordinate how that revenue is funded within those districts between the nonprofit and the city's Office of Economic Development.
Great. Maybe while we're talking about revenue, there was another question that said, who is the current vendor for Victory Park kiosk? Do we get ad revenue share from it? If so, how much? There was also a question of what revenue would the city receive? Would they generate revenue? And has the city quantified the amount of property tax revenue would be lost due to diminished property values associated with properties that would be harmed by those installations? So all of those questions had revenue tied in, but I didn't know if you had any information.
Sure. So the Victory Park kiosks is a partnership with Sensory Interactive. The Victory Park sign district is allowed up to 20 signs, and the city does not currently receive revenue from those kiosks.
There are a couple questions regarding the existing static kiosks. So there are some data about that. So April 2006, that's when that static kiosk was installed. There's a contract with a vendor, and there are currently about 137 static kiosks all over the city. Actually, I was surprised. I thought it was only downtown, but it's all the way go up. Actually, we have a map. Let's take a look at that map. Here it is. So the yellow dot is a location of existing kiosks, about 137 of them. And the current contract expires on June 30th, 2028. So it's about 4 more years. And in terms of general, the revenue, the city received approximately 825,000 a year. Well, that's revenue 2022. So total revenue collected since 2006 is about $16.7 million. So that existing kiosk. I think there's a question about what happened to if the city decide to terminate them earlier than the contract date, the city, there is a penalty up to $1 million if the city decide to terminate them early, meaning we have to pay the vendor to take out those kiosks and then restore the sidewalk. There's a penalty for it. But if we allow the contract to go June 30th, 2028, and then there's no penalty. So that's where we are right now for the static kiosks. I do want to point out there's some confusion about the kiosk and then the billboard. There was some question about that. The kiosks are the ones that you saw there. That's within the public right of way. So those are within the public owned land, public right of way. The billboards, some of the people that online have some question is those are on private property and they are regulated by the sign ordinance. So it's totally different. So we're not talking about the billboard today at all. We're only talking about digital kiosks within the public right of way. And that's why the digital kiosks in other cities can generate revenue for the city. The billboard does not generate any revenue for the city.
In the majority of the cities that we've looked at, there's a partnership with the city and a nonprofit, such as a downtown association, as far as the revenue.
So a lot of questions about the rights of property owners here. So we've talked about how these would go on public right of way, but the questions have to do with what rights property owners have as it relates to a kiosk that might be installed not on their property, but in a way that they think would impact the value of their property. So the questions are, can property owners forbid kiosks from being installed in front of their property, or will the final decision on location be left up to city staff or the vendor? That's probably the main question there.
As I said, currently there's no proposal on the table. As I assume, if the city council decided to go that route, then there will be additional information, additional, I guess, input on that in terms of where should go, how many should have. Those questions will come up later. At this point, there is no decision about moving forward on the digital kiosk at all.
Questions about what could be on the kiosks from a content perspective. I think both the decisions around that, the kinds of content that the city would permit, just assorted questions about who decides what goes on there or what typically goes on there.
Yeah, so typically the scenario that we've seen is that there are 8 different advertising spaces. Most cities have negotiated to have 1 out of every 8 advertising spaces on these kiosks as either a city related initiative or event or a local business. These ads, if they're not being, if someone's not actively using a kiosk, they change every 8 to 10 seconds. In the city of Seattle, in particular, they're working on timing within their contract so that city ads and local ads aren't only going on at non-peak hours. And also related to the kind of advertisement that can be on these kiosks. For example, City of Seattle, no liquor, smoking ads, or cannabis advertisements on their kiosk. And the content can be negotiated in the contract with the vendor.
So we talked about restriction on advertising content. There's a question here that had a lot of votes that said, would the city be transparent in disclosing the data mining? I would assume that means whatever data is mined from someone who interacts with the kiosk. I don't know who would hold that data or what, if anything, we know about any of that.
We do not have any of those information. I don't know how other cities are using the data, but those are the things probably can be in the contract. So right now, as I said, there's nothing, no contract table. But if the city decide to move forward on that, those are the information could be in a contract, who owns the data. I do not have specific information on that. A good question though.
A lot of folks interested in the interaction between pedestrians and the kiosks. One question was, are kiosks restricted from pedestrian traffic on public sidewalks, or do they compete for pedestrian usage?
I think depends on where they are located. Some of the existing kiosks, you can see some of those are, really kind of really close to sidewalk. Some of those are located further, but they are all different. There's some pictures here. Some city install them as part of the landscape area. Some city like this one is wider sidewalk. So the location of the kiosk can also be negotiated, and they all come in different size and shape, and so it depends.
I am a native Houstonian, but that's not why I'm asking these next questions about Houston, I promise. Why the huge gap in Houston between guaranteed and projected revenue? And then someone else asked, how many kiosks do each of the cities mentioned have? And they mentioned Houston over 12 years. So, Gray, I don't know if you could quantify that.
Can't speak to the numbers, but I can show the numbers, the revenue numbers. It's something we can look into, but I can give you the size of their programs. Got lost. Bear with me. So City of Houston, they've got 75, as of January, 75 digital kiosks installed, and they're approved to have up to 50 more for a total of 125 kiosks. San Antonio, their initial contract is for 25 kiosks, up to 30, and those are strategically to be installed in downtown, transit centers, park, and the airport. City of Berkeley, much smaller city, they were approved for 31. It's a two-phase project, and staff has said that, that they were on the smaller, lower end of what they felt they could accommodate with their vendor.
I'm going to bring in a question from Sid, who asked online about what are the guaranteed Wi-Fi speeds? Is it Wi-Fi 6 technology with upgradability to Wi-Fi 7? There was also a question submitted earlier that said, will they include charging stations for cell phones and other devices? So what do we know about the electronic capabilities there?
Do not know about the Wi-Fi speeds. I have seen examples where you can charge a phone. Link Philadelphia, they have the capability to charge your phone and use the Wi-Fi that way.
Let's see, looking for other questions that had a lot of folks wanting them asked. Talked about property owners, business case, benefits, advertising restrictions, data mining. It's a question, can you tell us who the lobbyists are that are advocating for digital kiosks? I don't know if we have any of that.
I do not know. I have not talked to any vendors. I just want, I don't know. I just want to answer your question. Our office have not talked to any vendors. We are neutral.
Let's see, any other city calculated? There's a question about, I don't know if you've been able to unearth any research on the cost of managing the kiosk site identification and installation process. So I know that from what you've told me, the vendor typically takes upfront responsibility for almost all of that. But I suppose there are staff costs associated with administering whatever that program is.
You have more information specific to the maintenance, but those are all, everyone that I've looked at, the maintenance was built into the contract and maintained by the vendor. Compliance issues, however, are handled by the city. Part of the City of Houston's maintenance agreement, as far as if they were to renew, there are conditions for renewal. The vendor must make monthly updates to the operating software, regular maintenance and repairs, including graffiti removal, electronic monitoring to ensure software is operable and shall remedy any malfunctions. They got to keep the content up to date and relevant and refresh the hardware.
Making my way through here. We talked a little bit about content before, but this question was, will there be an opportunity to feature local artists on digital kiosks?
Yes, I have one example. There are multiple cities that have included public art as part of their slides. Newark, New Jersey worked with a local artist, Miles Zhang. So there are opportunities. And many of the vendors have different facades of the structures. They can be modified. I mean, the size are typically the same, but the exterior can be changed.
A question about DART, the Dallas Area Rapid Transit. Have we gotten any information about their experience with their digital kiosks as a point of reference?
We can get the information. We have not got opportunity to talk to them. Have we talked to them yet? No, but that's a good question. Maybe we can follow up on that. I think, I do think there are some near the DART station, there are some digital kiosks, but those are installed by DART themselves, not by the city. I'm pretty sure the revenue generated from that and also go to DART, or maybe that's just for informational. But we can spend a little bit more time on doing some research on that subject.
So a question here, if a study has been completed regarding where Wi-Fi is actually needed in Dallas, because this is often referenced as a benefit of kiosks. Do we have any specific information there?
There's been a Wi-Fi study. Not that I'm aware of. I do know that City of Seattle, they have a comprehensive, it's called their Seattle Wayfinding Digital Strategy, and this is overarching signage of all types, where they also look at different behind the scenes of how, the hardware and different Wi-Fi and technology behind it and how it's implemented. They've been looking at that. So there are ways of doing additional research on guidelines for that.
So a question here about what happens when kiosks get hacked and show problematic content. So I guess if whatever was intended to be on the kiosk, someone, takes it over, in what way does a city or a vendor control that?
Be part of the vendor.
Yeah, that's should be part of the contract with the vendor. The vendor is responsible for the content, and so they are responsible for that. If it's a hack, and then the vendor need to fix that right away or shut it down. But that's not the city's responsibility. It should be in the contract though, so they will be held accountable for those, the vendors.
Couple of online questions I'm going to circle back to, and someone did ask if this is the only way you're going to interact. Once we get through all these, folks can speak. I just want to make sure that we get as many of these questions answered. The question from Cookie online is, what provisions are there to protect people using kiosks as charging stations from data or personal information theft? How do we keep people from using the kiosks from data or personal information theft?
I can't speak to the personal data. We can do some additional research on that. I can speak to the security. A lot of the vendors, they work with the municipalities and their, police departments. They're 24-hour, this example here in Houston, there's 24-hour response times on maintenance, but also the emergency calling, connection with the dispatcher of location. They have recording of public cameras. If there was an issue of theft, that could be retrieved. And there's an emergency messaging system that's integrated with their city's emergency alert system. So there are ways to try to minimize those issues.
And just on that, Sid asked, can these kiosks be used to call 911 or report emergencies?
They can, yes. I think I have an image of one.
Emily a while ago referenced the difference between this and the sign ordinance, but the question here is, will the city comply with its own sign ordinances with regard to these kiosks? In other words, if these would not be permitted on private property, will the city prohibit their installation in the right of way?
There is a difference between the kiosk within right of way and the private sign. They are governed at different. So anything on private property, they're subject to the sign ordinance. And some of these kiosks actually do exist in some of the private properties. Some of those are in the Victory Park, I believe, right? And they have that they subject to the sign ordinance. On the different subject, as I mentioned earlier, this is different than billboard. Just to let you know, the billboard regulation right now is also being reviewed. And probably sometime down the road, we'll present it to City Council as well. But it's a separate project, different regulations, different subject. Those are the one that mostly along the highways, actually pretty big. Some of those are still static. There's proposal out there if you're interested in that subject as well. There is a draft right now being discussed about how to change that. And some of those signs could be changed from static to digital. So that's a big difference. You know, static sign, you put there, it stay there for months, sometimes years. Once you change digital, the image can change every 8 seconds. So a lot of different images there. But that's a separate subject from the digital kiosk within public right of way. The public right of way usually it's a city-owned or state-owned, and they have to go through a different process. Usually goes through public work. These are public work. So eventually public work will be involved in this, managing some of these projects, but it's different compared to the private property.
Couple more here. Have you engaged citizens from other cities with kiosks to discuss if they like these, not just the entity making money? And then what are the risks for distracting drivers? Are there any studies or data associated with that?
I haven't engaged with.
I do not know, but I just want you to know I lived in Louisville for 21 years. I just moved here 2.5 months ago. So in the city of Louisville, I try not to bring it up because I'm trying to be neutral. They did install this in the public right away. So Gray asked me earlier whether you want to show example in Louisville. I said, no, I don't want to feel like people I'm biased. But since this question was brought up, City of Louisville does have a digital kiosk program within the right away in the downtown, but that program is not proposed by the city. It was proposed by the downtown development corporation. So it's a nonprofit, and they would like to use that for wayfinding different ways, but more importantly, to generate income or revenue for the downtown development corporation. But that one was not proposed by the city of Louisville.
A couple of questions on the potential for loitering or perhaps those who are unhoused to be drawn to these. One question says, do you think that people loitering in front of a business to charge their phones and use the free Wi-Fi will be a nuisance? And what does including a charging station do for homeless populations? Wouldn't that become an issue? I don't know if you have any examples or information from other cities on those questions.
I do not have a specific. Code enforcement.
Right, that's one. But I did hear one comment from someone, I think maybe one of the conversations, it was like sometime for international travelers, say people from Europe come to here, maybe not, they don't have the plan for their phone, and this could be helpful, but that's just one comment from somebody. Do you have any more information on that?
With kiosks and homeless population.
Well, that's part of that. I mean, this is, if we have this, if this is for charging, this is available to all people, whether you're homeless or visitors or you're resident here, that is available to all if this is installed in the state of Dallas. I don't know that's going to happen, but if it does happen, this within the public right of way, it should be available to anyone who need the service.
I think we've touched on this in the earlier conversation about revenue, but just to circle back to it, the question is, has the city quantified the amount of property tax revenue that would be lost due to diminished property values associated with properties that would be harmed by these installations? And I think that there was another question very similar. How much tax revenues will the other cities cited stand to lose due to diminished property tax collections? I don't know if y'all have any data.
We do not have that data, and I don't know any city has that data, to tell the truth. But, you know, if we know anything, we'll let you know, but I have not heard anything about anybody have done any research, quantify that, have exact number. If you know anything about that, any city, let us know, but I have not heard through the research we did that have never come up. So good question.
I think I know the way you would respond to this, but there are questions about a potential request for proposal or RFP. And the specific question is, will the digital kiosks be presented to City Council before or after RFPs with greater detail on the specifics? Will there be a maximum number in the next RFP? If so, I assume that means will there be a maximum number of kiosks? But it sounds premature based on what you've said so far to even talk about that.
I agree. It is premature at this time. We're not going into the detail. So our job at this time is to collect the information, conduct the research, which we have done tremendous research already, presenting the fact, the findings to the city council. If city council decide to move forward, then there's another step. And I have Councilman Ridley here. Do you have any comments on that? I mean, the process wise, I think that's what happened is we do not know at this point whether the city or city council is moving forward or not. Assuming if not, then end of discussion, right? If they decide to move forward, there will be another step. But right now, there's no RFP on the table. There's no proposal on the table at this moment.
The only other couple of questions before we get to folks' comments, Sid Online says, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, but can these kiosks assist with navigation and integrate with Google Maps, bus schedules, directions to businesses, et cetera, or are these meant to simply show content?
Yes, they can. They do often have the ability to navigate maps around the city, restaurants, other places that you would be looking for. Here's one with a kind of a district level map, but they do have that option, that capability.
Well, I do know there are other questions that I haven't read verbatim, but I do want to also give folks a chance to comment, to share their comments rather than just ask questions. So what we're going to do now is if anybody wants to say something, and that includes folks who are online, we want to give you that opportunity. Tasneem has a microphone in the back for those who are here with us, just so that everyone online and in person can hear you. I want to apologize to my friend, Catherine Pedroza. She was here with her colleague to interpret in Spanish and Espanol. If anyone would benefit from that, she's here to help us with that. Lo siento, sorry about that. But if you'd like to say anything, raise your hand. If you're online, we've got folks monitoring that if you'd like to say anything, but we are here to hear your comments. I've got Joyce Martin raising a hand on WebEx. Joyce? Let's get her unmuted. See her there, but looks like she's muted.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Could we ask Mr. Parker to go over his presentation? We've kind of jumped around, and I would like some kind of orderly presentation of what these kiosks will do or how they work. And I think that hearing his presentation would help with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, let me get around to others' comments, and then we'll see. But he does have some content he can walk through if folks would like to hear it. So thank you for that. Others that want to comment? Yes, sir. Tasneem's got a. If you'd give us your name.
Hi. Oh. Okay, well, let's have the microphone down here. It looks like it's very sensitive. Hi, there we go. Hi, I'm Justin Gardner. And this is a comment I presented to the Oaklawn Committee, but figured it was just something to think about the contract for the static ones, what was it, like 20, 22 years, if it's 2028, something like that? Oh, 18 years. Sorry, my math was
2006.
2006. Okay, yes, sorry. Math was bad, but I'm assuming if the vendor's going to go through the work of installing all of these, it's going to be a long contract. And the world we live in, I saw a lot of comments online about iPhones and everyone has a smartphone in their pocket. Well, I think in the next 5 years, I brought up augmented reality. Apple started it with their little goggle, their vision, and I think it's going to become a lot more accessible. And I think that the wayfinding features, the transit time features, they may be useful somewhat today, but I think in 5 years, we're going to be in a very different world technologically. And if we sign a 20-year contract, I think these things are just going to, again, potentially become obsolete in a few years. And then really all they are is just advertisements.
And Justin, hearing what you're saying, is in other words, if there were I'm not trying to advocate at all, but if there were a much shorter term assigned to these digital kiosks, does that change your opinion as to whether they're worth implementing?
I mean, I'm very much, I don't love the idea of them blocking sidewalks is kind of the main thing. So, this is just one kind of bigger picture thing. I'm not in favor of them overall.
Understood.
But I think kind of just thinking about it, yes, I think there's a lot of things that I have problems with immediately when they're installed, which is the pedestrian experience and, blocking our narrow sidewalks. But I think, again, when we're talking about, it's probably only going to make sense for the vendor or the city financially to do this for a long contract,
Right.
15, 20, 25 years. And, it's just a big box and a big screen. I mean, in 20 years, I could probably, I would bet money that that's just not going to be important in 20 years to have a
Fair
big
enough.
box. So,
Yeah, so basically, the chances of it only being there for a short time are slim, so it would be there a long time, so probably obsolete is the way you would look at it.
that's the way I'm
All
thinking
right,
of it.
thank
yeah.
you, Justin, appreciate it. Yeah, a couple of comments online, and then I'll go back to the room. We had a comment from Sid, said, "It will be important to prioritize the value proposition for the residents, business owners, and visitors in that particular order. Future-proof these kiosks technology-wise to have the latest Wi-Fi and private cellular technologies. A shorter tenure will keep it competitive and the vendors on their toes." Other comments in the room? I think my friend up front may have.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, so good evening. My name is Michael Williams, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Real Estate Council. TREC represents over 2,000 professionals and over 600 member companies in the commercial real estate industry. And we want to thank you for engaging stakeholders and the public in this process. TREC was opposed to the initial RFP and shared our opposition with council and city staff at that time. And we remain concerned about the future business case for digital kiosks because we don't think that digital kiosks provide any kind of novel service. Rather, they offer duplicative services. We think they would clutter our sidewalks, obstruct and congest the pedestrian right-of-way, especially in busy areas. And they could also further distract drivers, increasing the risk for more accidents that would negatively impact Dallas and its Vision Zero objectives. And they could detract from our urban landscape and serve as a magnet for graffiti and vandalism. Prior to issuing any additional RFPs for this product, TREC would like to see the city articulate a clear vision for why digital kiosks are necessary, a plan for design standards, budget impacts, and communicate the process to determine future locations. Until this information is publicly available and vetted, TREC cannot support any new requests for proposals. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak on behalf of TREC and our members.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I don't have to summarize that at all. Thanks, Michael. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Jason Grant. I live downtown and spend a lot of time walking around in downtown, uptown, and Victory Park, and also at DART stations. That comment was my question, because they rolled out in 2020 300 interactive digital kiosks across their service area. They're at all the light rail stations, the transfer centers. I see them every day. I would invite you to go and read their press release from 2020 because they promised there was some very blue sky thinking in that about, oh, it'll do Wi-Fi, it'll be interactive, we'll showcase local businesses, it'll show you all this great transit information, this and that. And the reality, you can walk up to Akron Station and look at it, probably about 20% don't work, or they've overheated or something. The transit information, because it's on that 8-second scroll, and there's also on a Chiron, it's pretty useless. The advertisements are very generic, just national. Like if you want to buy a Polaris quad cycle or something, I don't know why any dart rider would be interested in that, but whatever. And so I know that's DART and not the city, but sort of implementation wise, I would say City of Dallas and DART are pretty comparable. So there was a bright, shiny future promised. The reality 4 years later is very underwhelming, and they're just a waste of space and electricity. And two, all the images you're showing of Kiosk and other cities feature very pleasant pedestrian environments with lots of wide sidewalks and trees. And we don't have a whole lot of that here. We're getting more, it's getting better, but we don't, there's a lot of like ADA non-compliance on the sidewalks here where you can't even get a clear 3 feet to walk through. And I personally find myself removing like city road work ahead signs that completely obstruct the sidewalk. So I don't think we have the pedestrian environment that would make it a good fit for those, or even that many people walking around. That's about it. But those pictures compare with the static kiosks downtown, which are just totally in the way and in dumb locations and really do block the sidewalk. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's my
appreciate your
comment.
points. And, it's helpful to have, direct experience with the kiosks that are there now and their limits or dysfunction. And I hear what you're saying that, maybe comparisons to some of these other cities aren't as apt because the pedestrian experience is not as similar. So thank you very much. Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi, my name is Jack Grzyński. I'm an architect here in Dallas. I would like to ask what happens if, in the unlikely event that during the tenure of this contract, the vendor goes out of business or otherwise somehow abandons the project? Who takes responsibility for that?
Know anything about that in other cities, or not sure that's something that was specifically researched? Anything that we can say on that?
Well, that's probably a legal question. If we go down that road, I'm pretty sure our legal counsel will be really, really review that and put something in there. I think that's good. We don't have the answer today, but if the city of Dallas, does decide to move forward, that contract, there will be something in there from the legal perspective, who is responsible for that, or what happens in the event the vendor goes bankrupt. It's really a good legal question, but we're not really there yet. But when the city of Dallas look at the contract, that will be something that the attorney will definitely take a look at and have some clause in there.
More you wanted to say in relation? No? We can try in following up to see if we can get access to other cities' contracts and whether that's spelled out. But thanks, Jack, for the question. Others? Yes, ma'am. Coming around the mountain. Here she comes. And just a reminder to our folks on WebEx, if you'd like to speak, you can raise a hand. You can raise a hand or put it in the chat. And we do have Spanish interpretation there as well.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Weiss. I'm Executive Director of the Dallas Arts District in District 14. I'm here to join others, as we did in the past, in direct opposition of the Smart City advertising kiosks. Dallas Arts District shared its initial opposition for these kiosks because at that time, and I actually think today, still lacks clarity on the city policy to determine future locations and excluded community input. So I do want to thank you for the opportunity for this meeting for community input. We ask that you prohibit placement of these kiosks along Flora Street in accordance with the council adopted Connect Master Plan. This is the heart and cultural spine of the #1 arts district in the nation, and this would be an inappropriate use of the public realm. It goes against the vision of safety, connectivity, ADA compliance, and accessibility. We want to reserve the excess public right-of-way for wayfinding opportunities for public art. Please honor the current signage ordinances should the city decide to move forward with these advertising kiosks. Do not allow a new kiosk RFP until the previous kiosk contract terminates, and we collectively decide together how to remove and replace those. All future advertising kiosks should be considered in place of, not in addition to, the city's existing kiosks. Thank you. These are really.
They're so sensitive. Thank you, Lily. Appreciate it. I'm assuming that you would like the floor, sir. Sure. You may. Can you tell us who you are?
Joseph Pitchford, Crescent Real Estate.
Can you use Tasneem's mic?
Hello, I'm Joseph Pitchford with Crescent Real Estate, also a member of the board of Uptown Dallas Inc. And Crescent and Uptown are opposed to the digital kiosk. And what I'd like to do is move that full-scale model of a digital kiosk to somewhere where the folks at home can see it. May I do that?
You may.
Okay, thank you.
If I had elevator music, it would be playing. So for folks online, we're about to bring into the view here a scale model. Right where you are is good, sir. Yeah. You may have to come off the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why they're paying him the non-existent bucks. That's great. It is visible. Well, it's nice to meet you, Digital Kiosk. All right. Just noting online, Teresa asked, is transcript or minutes available or just the video? I think we will certainly be able to provide a summary of the meeting. It's part of my charge. I don't know about a full transcript, but we can certainly do a summary. Others with comments? Yes, sir. Tasneem, we're coming here in the middle, and then I think we had one person on the outside.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Anthony Page. I'm residing uptown, and I'm appearing here today in two capacities. One is the chairperson of the Uptown Dallas Inc. Public Realm and Capital Improvements Committee, and also as the official spokesperson for the Uptown Neighborhood Association. We want to join with Downtown Dallas Inc., the Real Estate Council, Knox Street Public Improvement District, Dallas Arts District, the Oak Lawn Committee, University Crossing Public Improvement District, Clyde Warren Park, the Bishop Arts Merchants Association, the Lower Greenville Neighborhood Association, Harwood International, Hines Interests, Stream Realty Partners, Crescent Real Estate, Pacific Elm Properties, Madison Partners, Todd Interests, the Dallas Morning News Editorial Board, and numerous other stakeholders in expressing our strong and continuing opposition to the digital kiosk RFP proposed by the now no longer existent Department of Public Works, which is now part of a new organization. Visit Dallas has also withdrawn its support, we note. In 2022, over 1,400 individuals were killed or seriously injured in car crashes on the streets of Dallas. We have one of the highest per capita motor vehicle fatality and serious injury rates, not only in Texas, but in the United States and in the developed world. In recent years, the Dallas City Council has rightfully focused on a public safety crisis associated with traffic violence, directing the implementation of Vision Zero as a result. The dynamic and visually engaging nature of digital advertising diverts the attention of drivers and pedestrians alike, while also obstructing sightlines, creating dangerous conditions. This is one of the reasons digital billboards have historically faced stiff regulation here in the city of Dallas. Poorly integrated kiosks create confusion among road users, clashing with sound traffic management strategies. This proposal, were it to be adopted, would serve to undermine the tremendous strides the city's Department of Transportation has made in the implementation of Vision Zero. We strongly encourage you to cancel the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Over here, the lady in the white.
Thank you. I'm Jill Magnuson, and I'm board chair of the Dallas Arts District. Lily Weiss really said it all. And so I just wanted to say again that in the Arts District, after 5 years of master planning and really thinking about how your Arts District can hold up in the world, we would rather have art than advertising in the Arts District, and particularly not advertising from somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Come here, and then I'll go in the back.
I'm a resident in this area for 30 years, a property owner.
What may I call you?
I love to hear the city.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What's your name?
Oh, it's Paula Nemick.
Nice to meet you, Paul.
Is that going to do it?
Yes, ma'am.
75201. The city of Dallas goes on and on about how we're a walking city, how beautiful it is and everything. I've fought the whole time I've lived here for the things that they put on our sidewalks and around our sidewalks. There's no place to walk for a lot of people. If somebody's in a wheelchair, they might as well go home. And I've walked around the city. I've talked to a lot of groups outside the city. And the minute that this kiosk problem comes up, the answer is no. And I don't understand why the people in the city staff or whatever don't understand those words. Somewhere in this city, somebody's saying yes, but I have yet to run into them. And what my main question is, where is the money coming from all of this? Why can't they understand no? And I agree with the lady back here. We have so much things cluttering our visual atmosphere. We don't need, I don't know how many of these are proposing. We don't need them. I would like the people who say yes to this proposal to take a walk around our city and just see where are they going to put these. Anyway, my vote is no.
Thank you, Paul. Gentlelady in the back.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Potter. I live in Knox area, and I am the president of the Oaklawn Committee. And many of you know that for over 40 years, the Oaklawn Committee has been staunch proponents of quality of life in our city, walkable communities, wider sidewalks, tree canopy, pedestrian scale of buildings, as well as design streetscapes. We've had 2 different presentations on this topic in the last year. And right now we have over 200 members who are members of the Oaklawn Committee who live, work, and own property in PD 193. And I will tell you that both times we discussed it, we were unanimous in our opposition. And that doesn't happen very often, to get 200 people to agree on something at the Oaklawn Committee. So I want to go on record tonight to say that we continue to oppose this for all the reasons that have been said, and that we would like to see this stop. And I've had the opportunity, and I appreciate being included in the conversation now and into the future. Thank you. And to our councilman, thank you for your continued support.
I've got some comments. Just before I take those hands, I just want, if folks intend to leave early, to just let folks know we did want to give you a chance to respond to one additional poll question. And so I will just leave it up here on the screen as we continue the conversation. It's just kind of an open-ended closing question about the possibility of new digital kiosks. A lot of what your sentiments have been shared either orally or in some of the questions, but if folks want to add additional comments, whether they're online or here in person, you may do so. Gentlemen, I think here in the sport coat, and then we'll go to right behind you.
I'm Mike Turner. I office in Uptown, and I represent numerous property interests in Uptown and around the Dallas area. And I'm also the City Hall liaison for the Oaklawn Committee. And I have yet to encounter a single person that is in favor of these kiosks. And in discussions about the kiosks, we think it's a dead issue, but it keeps coming back like a bad penny. And this kiosk program keeps climbing out of its coffin, and we need to just drive a wooden stake through it once and for all. There's nobody that we come in contact with that wants them.
A specifically wooden stake, just to be clear, not.
That's what usually solves the problem.
I
It's
see.
a wooden
Okay.
stake.
Well, I appreciate the
Or
specificity.
a stave, as they used to call it.
Thank you. Right behind the gentleman here.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jamie Jolly. I'm here as the President and Executive Director of Uptown Dallas, Inc. We represent roughly 2,000 individual and commercial property owners in the Uptown Public Improvement District. Uptown is known as one of the most walkable districts in the city, and many of our businesses and our residents move there for that reason. And we're constantly looking at ways to improve the pedestrian right-of-way. We spend a lot of our resources working on those efforts. In fact, right now we're working with the city on a $750,000 program in order to move signage out of our sidewalks, out of the right-of-way, so that we can clear up those sidewalks. And so we don't feel that this is something that really is needed in the city, first of all, and then secondly, it does create a challenge for pedestrians. It also concerns us when it comes to drivers and distracting our drivers. Our sidewalks are very close to our streets in Uptown, so we want to do everything we can to keep our pedestrians safe and keep our neighborhood walkable. So we ask that you please consider not moving forward with an RFP and let this go for final decision.
Thanks very much. Others? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Again, if you need to leave us, whether you're online or in person, please take this last question that's on screen. Yes, ma'am.
Judy Hurst, and can you hear me? I'm Judy Hurst, and I live in the State Thomas Historic District. I'm with the Friends of State Thomas. We have a historic district there that's been there 40 years, and there is no one in our historic district that wants to see these advertisements on the sidewalk. And I would venture to say State Thomas proper, the 100-acre State Thomas. I've never heard of anyone in there that ever said they wanted something like advertising on the sidewalk. We work all of us to try to get sidewalks so we can use them, because they're so limited in our historic area. So, it just doesn't seem right. And we've been here before. We've written our councilman before on this, and just wanted to chime in and say that our area is not interested, but thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, in the light blue.
Hi, I'm Adam Murphy. I'm the Vice President of the Oaklawn Committee, and I just want to echo what everyone else in the room has been saying about not wanting these digital kiosks in our area. And so, as Shelley mentioned, the Oaklawn Committee, our 200 plus members are unanimous against it. And we've championed for years, for decades, making wider sidewalks in our area, in Uptown and Oaklawn and Knox, and we have some very wide sidewalks, and we don't. We want them to be for the pedestrians, and we don't want them to be compromised with digital kiosks. And as our area becomes more walkable and more dense, it's really important for those sidewalks to remain available for pedestrians. And we just hope that this dies, and we hope that the city can prioritize the resources for other things that are more important.
Well, certainly we have a way to kill them. We've talked about a wooden stake. Just want to be clear. There's a gentleman here, a Tasneem in the back. Making me look bad. He's immaculately dressed there.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Harrison Blair, and I serve as president and CEO of the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, which is also America's oldest and one of its largest Black chambers of commerce in the nation. And I'm here to give my continued support to kiosks in this project that we've given really over the past 3 years. So anybody who hasn't run into anyone who supports the kiosks, now you've run into someone. Here's your sign. And also, Want to just talk about the fact that we believe these enhance not only communities and places that don't have as much infrastructure as the neighborhoods that are perhaps represented, the only neighborhoods that are represented here today, but we believe it also helps small businesses. And I don't stand alone in these efforts. This project is supported by dozens of other groups and businesses from all across the city, not just one portion of the city. Small businesses understand that this will help their businesses and that they could potentially be promoted on them. Businesses like Angry Dog in Deep Ellum and Revelers Hall in Bishop Arts, close to where I live. Entertainment organizations like 24 Hour Dallas, Fair Park First, and International District, they get it. Some of our Dallas-based largest land developers like Jim Lake Co. and business leaders and community trade organizations such as Visit Dallas, which if they changed their mind, they hadn't told us before we came in here tonight, or the Dallas Regional Chamber, the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce, or the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. Together, we make up a broad coalition of Dallas supporters for this project because we understand that digital kiosks are great opportunities for the city of Dallas as a whole. Now, throughout all my travels on behalf of economic development to every major city across the globe, I always encounter kiosks. Lots of different designs, lots of different functionality, but a lot of economic development wherever they are. And many of the speakers in this room that are against this project tonight must know that kiosks are obviously great for Dallas because they've been installed on sidewalks on their private properties for quite some time. And if you saw the map, you see that there are no kiosks in places where people like me are from. So they're already installed in Victory Park. They're in the West End. And if they're good for private property, then they're also good for the entire city of Dallas. I'd also like to submit to the council this list of 13 organizations who also stand with the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Appreciate your comments. Others? Let me just make sure I get to anybody who hasn't spoken yet, and then I can come back. Anybody that hasn't spoken that wants to say anything? Then go ahead, ma'am.
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have always wondered about why we couldn't opt out. Why can't Uptown in Oak Lawn opt out and let him do, he wants this. So we don't want it.
So
why can't?
So the question is, to what extent can a particular neighborhood or property improvement district decide that these kiosks will not be in the right of way that's within their boundaries? That's your question.
Well, yeah, why can't we opt out of it as a neighborhood?
Do we have information about the way these decisions are made in other cities and whether neighborhoods get to?
Yeah, quite a few of the other cities, they did have strategic ways of identifying locations around the cities, special districts, historic districts, certain sign ordinances were all typically, understood and left alone or encouraged not to include signage. But there were also a few areas, at least in Seattle, where it was partially a historic district in the neighborhood and there was enthusiasm for them. But there are other cities as well that also do sort of pilot programs for certain neighborhoods that really wanted to have the kiosks and others did not. Other cities have boards. They work with the city staff, a volunteer board, and the vendor to find appropriate locations.
So it sounds like there in other cities, there's evidence of those neighborhoods at least being able to have some input and influence over the decisions the city is making about where to locate the kiosks, but not necessarily a veto like thou shalt not. Okay. Does that answer your question, or did you want to follow up? It's complex. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is, there could be places that some folks think that they add value and some areas where folks think they absolutely would detract value, and what autonomy, what influence, what power can those neighborhoods who don't want them have? And that's something we will certainly make sure the council hears as we go forward. Yes, sir, in the very distant corner. Someday I hope you'll explain to me why you're sitting 100 yards from me, but I do, yeah.
Hello, my name's Chauncey Raspberry, and I represent a business in Deep Ellum, and I am for the kiosk. I think they do well, as far as Harrison said, for economic development and for businesses. Maybe not so much for residents, but I think it does do well for economic development in small businesses and people that provide jobs. So I am for the kiosk. I think they're actually kind of cool looking as well.
Let me ask, if I may, Harrison and also Mr. Raspberry. I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a public hearing, but it's also a conversation. And so obviously you've heard a lot of folks express, concern about them. And they've talked about the pedestrian experience. They've talked about the aesthetics. I just am wondering how the two of you feel their concerns could be addressed in the space of in the space of there being some benefit. Sorry, one mic, two men.
Sorry. I believe as far as public safety, as far as traffic, when you actually look at accidents and why they happen, is usually because the person, if they're not on their phone, they're not looking at a kiosk, they're probably looking at something else. So a person is going to crash, is going to crash regardless, not because of some kiosk that's sitting right there. So I don't think it poses a public safety issue. And as far as sidewalks, I mean, every day I drive, there's something in my way or in a blind spot when I pull up to an intersection. So I think if we're going to correct the situation as far as public safety, it needs to be corrected as a whole and not directed towards one specific thing that somebody may not want personally. Some district is going to work very well, but of course, nobody would like to walk out of their home and have a kiosk in front of their front door. But as far as businesses and economic development, I think it's a great thing in business districts and where where it makes sense.
Harrison, do you want to add? And then I'll come over here. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll just say initially, the questions that have been presented have been amazing. I've learned from everybody's perspective in the room. And that's why I think it's important that we represent the perspectives of the organizations we serve and communities that I walk through every day, where there's a ton of space and for all the wrong reasons. And so any kind of new infrastructure that could potentially come to our community, we have a responsibility to try and bring it. And they have a lot of different uses where I've seen them. It sounds like most of what I'm hearing is a design issue. And if there were a way that we could get communities engaged, we've got developers here, we've got folks who can tell us what some of the best designs would be. Or if it doesn't look like that, what does it look like? Or if it does operate on cell phones, how does that operate? What does that look like? But I do think that we have to have a conversation about this, because from our perspective, when you talk about the low 30, that has a connotation to it. And everybody in here, even without me saying why, already knows. So infrastructure is really what it's about for us. Access and accessibility in communities that don't always have it. That's what it's about. And everywhere I've gone around the country and around the world, and I see these kiosks, I see a lot of economic development opportunities, and I see a lot of economic activity.
Thanks, Harrison. There was a navy blue shirt over there. Tasneem, we got two mics circulating, just to make it a little easier on you. Your Fitbit won't appreciate that.
So I just wanted to kind of comment. You mentioned about small businesses and advertising, which I love the idea of, and I'm wondering if there's anecdotes from either you or from you guys of, when I think of what I've seen on the static billboards, I feel like and I don't always look at the static billboards, but I feel like a lot of times they're advertisements from companies with really deep pockets. So blockbuster movie releases, Verizon Wireless, like all these things. And, when it comes down to it, I'm thinking whoever the highest bidder is for the ad is going to be the one that gets the ad. And, again, love supporting small business, but I don't know if there's examples of, are they allocating a percentage of these ads where we're going to price them a lot less for small businesses? I don't know. I feel like it's going to be all the corporate and the big name stuff, and I don't know how often small businesses would be able to participate.
I could tell Harrison wants to respond before he does.
Yeah.
Well, let's at least make a note of trying to run down if there are parameters established in other cities for local business apportionment. We think there might be, but we need to get back to you on that part. But Harrison, you want to?
And I would just say the only kind of discrimination I like is price discrimination. And if you have an opportunity to do that for small businesses, I think that is a great way for communities to specifically influence what you like to see there. If we want to get a local bar more activity, or if we want to really upshoot a small business and give them some access to resource and make it accessible to everyone else, there's some opportunity there.
Appreciate the conversation. Others that haven't been heard? I'll just share some of what has been submitted. I wish staff would devote its time and resources to other topics. This is a drain on the limited resources at City Hall. If there's not public interest or support, we should move on. The people who want them are not in the walkable areas. Less is better. I don't look at the static kiosks now. Not considering at all, we don't want them. They need to be personalized to add value to the pedestrian and match the advertising to local businesses that meet the pedestrian's preferences. The hardware should blend into the immediate ambiance. They should be works of art in the art district. One person just wrote opportunity. What comes to mind that this is a terrible idea. I wonder how it got this far, a colossal waste of time. I'm completely opposed to the addition of any digital kiosks. I agree with the opinions voiced in today's meeting, which appeared to be almost unanimous in opposing the digital kiosks. For reasons of accessibility, aesthetics, and utility, there does not seem to be any benefits to the actual community members, only advertising dollars for the city. I think the city would benefit economically in the long term by listening to the community and creating an environment where people want to live. And one person wrote, infrastructure for my community. Also, digital kiosks don't create economic development. Digital kiosks follow economic development. Kiosks will only go where pedestrians are. Don't move forward with this request for proposal. We don't want them. They diminish the right of way and the pedestrian experience. When someone was asked what comes to mind, they said pedestrian safety, resident discomfort, accessibility and aesthetics, dystopia. It's depressing and not in the best interest of the community. Don't want them. I think of the additional congestion on our sidewalks. They'll be defaced. They'll end up old and will blight our city. Strictly money focused, not pedestrian or people focused. People before advertisements. Less is better. I think I read that one already. So again, please contribute other comments here if you haven't felt that you've been heard orally or otherwise. And are there any other folks that want to have the floor? Just want to thank Uptown for this. Is there a possibility I could take it home and my children play with it? Sure. I actually don't know what Southwest would say if I check that, so I'll have to. Just want to check in with Emily to see if either of the two of you wanted to share any comments about what you've heard or about our next steps in our process this evening. I know we had a request, pardon me. Test. I know we'd had a request for Gray to go through the entire slide deck. I think we've had a really good discussion here. And so I think if folks have additional questions, Gray would be available to answer them, but I don't think having him go through a bunch more information is necessarily what we need. But to both of you, closing.
Thank you all. We still have our webpage, the digital kiosk webpage, City of Dallas Planning and Development. My email is on contact, and happy to follow up with you all on the future of this consideration.
I would like to talk a little bit about next steps. So we have done some research. We have a lot of feedback tonight. So what we're going to do, compile those and then present it to the City Council Transportation and Infrastructure Committee on September 16th. So we're not going to hold any more public meeting. I think a lot of people already, at least twice, right? We got a lot of feedback today and online in different ways. So we're going to compile that and present it to City Council in September. So you are welcome to watch that one, and you can continue to send us feedback up until I think we need to close it sometime at the end of next week. So if you want to give us feedback, trying to give it to us within a week so we can put it in a final report and presentation. Any question about next steps?
There's a question here in the back.
No, the committee is a presentation of staff. We'll make a presentation, mostly me and Gray. We'll present the findings. It's all objective. As I told you, I have not talked, our office have not talked to any vendor. So we are trying to be neutral and objective, and all the feedback we received from you all today and also previously and in the coming week, and also the research we have done. We're going to present that to City Council at the Infrastructure and Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and then go from there. And then the committee will decide what they're going to do with that, either send it to the full council or give some more direction of staff. So we'll see. You can come to City Hall to watch it or watch it online, but I don't believe it's a public hearing though. Councilman Whitley, is that right? It's not public hearing. Yeah, Councilman Whitley just said the public is invited to attend either in person or online, but there's no opportunity to speak. It's not a public hearing. But if you still have concerns or questions, you're welcome to submit that to us, either by email to Gray or through online. We have forms there.
That's all right. Thank you all very much. This is a very productive session, and have a good evening. Appreciate the participation.
Thank you.